We've all heard agents, especially on social media, or if they're trying to sell you a course, boast about their millions of dollars they've sold. I sold $10 million last year, $50 million last year. But what we need to realize is that it needs to be less about the number, the $1 million number, and more about the transaction number for a couple of reasons. Here's why. Transactions tell a lot. Transactions tell how active they are. So let's take this as an example, and you're going to hear probably the same example throughout. So grant me some grace. But like we were looking at some properties and we were seeing beautiful ranches out in like Colorado and Montana. And those were 6, 7, 8, 10, $12 million. So let's say that somebody sells one $10 million ranch, a huge ranch on 1,000 acres. How many transactions did they do? One. So does that mean that they're a good agent, that they fell into it, that they were selling their own property and didn't want to pay commission and got licensed? Yes, I've seen all those things happen. And then somebody else, maybe they are only a $500,000 producer, but the average sales price in their area might be $100,000. So even though their volume in millions is way different, they have actually sold more property, which probably means that they're more experienced, that they are full-time, that they know more of what they're talking about, but yet it might not be as interesting on social media to say I sold $500,000 versus 10 million. That's why you need to know those transactions as well. And that's why you need to worry about what that number says when you're seeing people, especially on social media, and not worry about the how many millions it is. So another thing that the transactions will tell you is, are they an individual agent or do they have a big team? So there are people in our area who do hundreds, literally hundreds of transactions every year. Well, you know that one person is not going to be doing 200 transactions or more on their own. So what does that tell you? That tells you that they're on a team. They might have, and there's one team in our area that has like 20 staff, different buyers agents and all of that part to it. So while you might have, 50 transactions, of course you're not going to be able to compete with that, but you're one person. But that also means that your clients are seeing one person and they can count on you. They can ask you questions. They can reach you. They're not being passed off to the next person. So transaction numbers matter, not just dollars. So when you're kind of feeling down in the dumps, like, oh my goodness, I'm never going to be a $10 million producer. How are they selling $50 million worth of real estate? I'm barely hitting $1 million. Just remember that you don't know their backstory. You don't know how many agents they have working for them. But more importantly, you probably have no idea what that sales price is in their area. And I'm going to give you an example of that. So my husband and I were looking to buy a house in Florida, and we saw a lot of houses. So we went down 1 week, or not even a week, a few days, and I think we saw 30 houses in one day, just boom, 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 back to back. And then we went down a few weeks later, and I think we saw like 20. And then we saw some more the other day. So we saw a lot. We were really able to get a feel of what those houses looked like, neighborhoods, outside, etc., work they needed done for the price point. So finally, it was our second trip, day 2, and I couldn't take it anymore. I said to our realtor, Ryan, Ryan, see that dump right there? I'm talking like it needed work on the outside. It looked like a junkyard on the outside. It was not a nice house, for lack of a better word. I'm like, that at home would be like $75,000, $100,000. How much is it here? And he goes, you can't touch that for under $300,000. Wow. Now think about that for a minute. Where he's at, a quote dump would cost $300,000. Where I'm at, that same house is going to cost about $100,000. So he is able to sell a lot less than me to equal my volume, or he can be a much, much bigger looking millions plus producer, but have less sales than what I would have to catch up with him, just because his properties cost 3 times what our properties do. So that's why that is so important to know, so that when you are feeling like, you know what, I'm just not as good as them, I'm never going to hit that volume. How are they doing that? They're so great. Maybe, just maybe, it is less about how much they're actually selling in the millions and how they're doing that, just in terms of purchase price, if that makes sense. Now, here's another story about transactions. There's a lady in our area, and she sells primarily mobile homes. Now, discussing Florida again, mobile homes in Florida, What they cost is way different than what they cost in our area of Ohio. So while you might find a mobile home for, 150,000 plus in Florida, and I'm sure they have all ranges, so that doesn't mean that's a minimum. Here you can find them for a minimum of like 10 or 12,000 and up. But this lady sells a ton of mobile homes and she knows her stuff. In fact, she's been helpful to us because she helped us find some lenders who did financing for mobile homes. But here's the thing, her volume is really, really, really low because she's selling places that sell for $30,000. But her number of transactions is huge because she is the person who sells more mobile homes in our area than anybody else. So what that means is she is doing a ton of transactions. It's just the volume is small in terms of price. But it also means because she's doing so many transactions, she's super knowledgeable and knows what she's doing and is definitely a full-time realtor. Not to mention the fact that she kind of has a niche because she sells so many. She knows that market so well, and there's going to be a lot of referral and repeat in that area. So what kind of volume can a single agent do? Well, that's going to vary. There's a lot of factors to that. I'm not going to get into that specifically, but I'm going to tell you about two of my friends who have been individual agents for quite a while. One has been licensed as long as me and probably one about 10 years more. I've seen them do between 60 and 70 transactions regularly on their own. Just the office manager who's doing admin stuff and them. That's it. And they are loved, respected, and they are great to work with and know what they're doing. So I hope in all of this that you take heart. Take heart in the fact that just because you're not a $10 million producer or $100 million producer doesn't mean that you're not great at what you do. And just because people around you seem to be doing more, don't be discouraged by that because you don't know the backstory in terms of if they have a team or not. And you really don't know how much houses cost in their area. So that's what I want to leave you with is don't be discouraged. You've got this and I can't wait to teach you more.